9, 8.
You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales. Streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
2, 1.
So two friends are out walking along the beach, Chuck and Earl, and they have their dogs with them. And Chuck owns a Dalmatian and Earl owns a Chihuahua. And they're walking along and suddenly they smell this delicious odor from an upcoming restaurant. And Chuck says, "We should get something to eat." And Earl's like, "They're not going to let us in with our dogs." So Chuck looks around and he sees a little kiosk just before the restaurant where they're selling stuff like suntan lotion and sunglasses and stuff like that. He goes, "Follow my lead." So he runs over and he buys 2 pairs of dark sunglasses, hands one to Earl, puts it on, starts walking to the restaurant, gets inside, and the manager's standing by the door to seat people. He's like, "Excuse me, sir, we don't allow dogs." And Chuck says, "Oh, this is my seeing eye dog." He goes, "It's a Dalmatian." Chuck says, "Yeah, they're using Dalmatians now because German Shepherds are being used for police dogs and stuff like that. So they've had to move on to other breeds." He goes, "Oh, well, my apologies. Do you need help to your seat?" He goes, No, the dog will lead me." And he goes and has a seat. Moment later, Earl walks in, sunglasses on, led by his Chihuahua. Manager goes, "I'm sorry, sir, we don't allow dogs in here." He goes, "But that's my seeing eye dog." Manager goes, "A Chihuahua?" Earl goes, "What? They gave me a Chihuahua?" Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show, the last Dan Wickline Show of 2023. I'd like to welcome in Ed, Triple B, Kenneth, Jay, Leonard, and of course, JD on the board. Good to see everybody. Please hit those thumbs up buttons and like and subscribe and all those things. I appreciate it when you do that. We are going to talk about a couple of shows. I've been catching up on shows during the holiday break. Lisa's been down. We watched all the Doctor Who's. Haven't seen the Christmas special, but we watched the ones leading up to it. We watched the series Bodies. What If, caught up on all the what ifs. Watched Rebel Moon. Current on Reacher, season 2. So we're going to talk about 3 of those today. We're going to talk about where we're at on What If. We're going to talk about Bodies, and we're going to talk about Rebel Moon. News-wise, normally I do the news at this point, and there's not a lot of news to cover. I mean, the biggest thing right now is there were rumors about the upcoming second Batman movie with Robert Pattinson, directed by Matt Reeves. And a lot of the talk for the movie was it was going to suddenly have multiple villains. It was going to be Scarecrow. It was going to be Professor Pig. That Dick Grayson was going to be introduced. This was all the rumors going on around out there. And the problem is there are so many scoopers trying to get people to click. And a lot of them now have gotten paywalls. They have, OnlyFans or, Patreons and stuff where you've got to pay for these rumors now. So they're coming up with stuff. The thing is that Marvel lets this happen and doesn't debunk anything. So somebody comes out and says, Cillian Murphy is going to play Doctor Doom. Oh my God, Cillian Murphy, Cillian Murphy, Cillian Murphy. And Marvel looks over and just goes, and goes about its business. Well, DC is a little different because DC has James Gunn running them now. And James Gunn will actually go online and go, no, that's BS. And that's exactly what he did with these latest rumors about the Batman 2. He's like, no Professor Pig, no Scarecrow, no Dick Grayson. He debunked the rumors. And of course, some of these rumor people, and these are some people that have good reputations. Daniel RPK is one of the ones that put out all this Batman stuff. He put it out behind his paywall and said, this is what I'm hearing. And as soon as James Gunn came out and said, no, he deleted it. He apologized. He put up an apology on his social media. It was a pretty weak-ass apology, to be honest. He basically just said, I have to own that one. And then, he's got the next batch of scoops and spoilers and stuff. I tend not to take anything seriously until I see it from Deadline, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, some of the more established industry papers or websites. These other ones are fun to talk about. They're fun to look at, but until somebody actually verifies it, you can't even take them seriously. JD says, I feel like Gunn gives different false info out to different teams to find out who's leaking to whom. That's possible. Hey, did you hear we're getting Glenn Close to play Supergirl? Yeah, that's going to be amazing. Glenn Close cast as Supergirl. Yeah, I can see that. I don't know if he does that, but by the way, Glenn Close as Supergirl would be awesome. Just saying. Not be a Supergirl we've ever seen before either. Just saying. All right, so again, not a lot of news going on. It's the holiday break. We do have, of course, passings. Yesterday, Tommy Smothers died. If you're not familiar with the Smothers Brothers, they were a very good act in the 60s and the 70s. They had their own show, and then it got canceled because they stood up to corporate censorship. You should look into that. But very talented duo. I was a little surprised to find out that Tommy was the older brother because he was always the clean-shaven one. He played the more simple of the two, and normally that's the younger brother in these kind of acts. The older brother is usually the straight man. So the fact that it was flipped was a little strange when you find out about it. But he was also a bass player, stand-up upright bass, and a world-class yo-yoist. Is there a term for yo-yoist? So, very interesting guy. Jay says, Glenn Close played a male pirate in Hook and was so good no one noticed. That's true. That is true. She only killed 3 people to get into the role, so that's good. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to move on to our actual topics today because we're going to cover 3 different shows. But first, I want to talk about Reacher. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on Reacher because I kind of want to wait until the whole season's done and give Reacher good coverage. But we're 4 episodes in as of now. 5th one drops tomorrow. And there's some interesting things they've done to change. This is based on the book Bad Luck and Trouble, which is the 11th book in the series. And that's one of the neat things about the Jack Reacher books, is they don't necessarily need to be read in order, because there's some overarching story, but overall they're self-contained. There's rarely, if ever, a repeated character, which is something that they're kind of dancing around in the show. In season 1, we're introduced to Frances Neely, played by Maria Sten, I think it is. She does not appear in the book Killing Floor, which is what season 1 was based off of. But by introducing her in season 1, they basically made her a recurring character, which would be the only other recurring character other than Reacher, because she does show up in a couple books, and Bad Luck and Trouble is one of them. So having her show up makes a lot of sense. So I see they're working their way around it. Another thing they did is in the 4th episode, and I'm trying not to do this with spoilers, but there's a cameo from a character in the 1st season showing up in the 2nd season. I was surprised, but I was pleasantly surprised. Like, oh my God, it was one of those moments, because I didn't expect this character to return, because again, they don't return in Reacher books. You get Jack and that's about it. So having that character return was really cool. Another thing they're doing different from the novel is they moved it. It originally takes place in California and Las Vegas. This takes place in the series is taking place in New York and Atlantic City. And I think the reason they did that is monetary. Because you can use a lot of Canadian cities and towns and stuff as a fill-in for American cities. The problem is that when they were filming, it was going to be snowing. You can't really use a snow-covered Canadian city to be Las Vegas or California. So they moved it, but by doing this, it then made the cameo possible. So it was really well done. I think the casting is superb. They brought in Serinda Swan to play Carla Dixon, and Sean Sippos to play David O'Donnell. Now, these two you might be familiar with. Sean Sippos played Adam Strange in the Krypton series, and Serinda Swan played Zatanna in Smallville. She was in Ballers, and she went on to play Medusa in the Inhuman series. So again, she did great characters, great portrayal. There's some really great lines in there. They've got Robert Patrick in there as the big bad. So if you've watched season 1 of Reacher, haven't started on season 2, jump in on it. It's good. If you haven't watched Reacher, it is pretty unique and pretty special. It's doing very well. It's like, last time I checked, it had 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. You know, whether you take Rotten Tomatoes seriously or not, 100% ratings is impressive. So, yeah. So I do recommend Reacher. It's on Amazon Prime. Next month, they're going to kick in commercials onto Amazon Prime. That's one of the things they've announced. So unless you pay an extra fee, you're going to start getting commercials. So now is also a good time to jump in on Reacher to avoid getting the commercials. So, all right, you know what? Let's go ahead. We'll take our first break, and when we come back, we will talk What If. Be right back.
Did you know that every Experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. Later on today will be What's in the Box, then the comic book Beardies, and of course, Sketch Up with Mog and Mel. And they just keep bringing more and more people in at night and do live art. So you want to check that out. All right, let's talk about What If Season 2. Now, this season kicked off on a couple days ago. Well, more than a couple days ago. But they've been dropping an episode a day since the 22nd. And the episodes have gotten more and more interesting, but also very different. It doesn't feel the same as season 1, but at the same time, they're very cool. It almost feels like they went, hey, let's take our favorite movie and, do something with that. So episode 1 is What If Nebula Joined the Nova Corps? And I really liked this one. This has a total Blade Runner feel to it. Certain actors come back. And that's the one thing that's really surprising to me, is a lot of people are coming back you think wouldn't come back. Love the hard-boiled detective story, exactly. We didn't get Glenn Close back as Nova Prime, but Michael Rooker came back for like a second of Yondu. Taika Waititi came back as Korg. Seth Green as Howard the Duck. Jude Law returned to do more Jan Rog. Peter Serafinowicz returned as Garth and Saul. So you have a lot of people. It's like, why is Jude Law coming back to voice an animated? Anyway. And they brought together, that's the other thing they're doing this season, is they seem to be kind of pulling together multiple movies. So this continues on what feels like part of Captain Marvel, part of Guardians of the Galaxy, but instead of, Nebula ends up joining the Nova Corps, finding a new home, and just really kind of takes up the oath. But you get Korg on the planet, you get Howard the Duck. It becomes a very interesting setup. And they do that whole film noir thing really well. JD says, during the pandemic, a lot of actors invested in home recording studios. It's a lot easier to get your voice work from the big names now. Oh yeah, I can see that. But it's funny that Jude Law will come back, but Robert Downey Jr. won't. Scarlett Johansson, Chris Evans, they won't. But just about everybody else is. It's, Michael Douglas is coming back. Lawrence Fishburne comes back. Kurt Russell all came back to voice things. So it's just kind of strange to me, or a weird balance, But so the first one I thought was really good, but you don't really have a overarching theme yet, which we finally saw. I have a feeling there's going to be one, but so, I don't think we're seeing it yet. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one was interesting because it's, what if Peter Quill attacked Earth's mightiest heroes? And the important thing on this one is they don't say they attacked the Avengers, because this isn't the Avengers. This is way before the Avengers. This is the 80s. This is Peter Quill was taken to Ego, trained, and then he escaped back to Earth trying to get home. And the team that takes him on and eventually takes on Ego are Hank Pym, voiced by Michael Douglas, Peggy Carter, voiced by Haley Atwell, Howard Stark, voiced by John Slattery, Chris Hemsworth comes back as Thor, Sebastian Stan comes back as Bucky, Lawrence Fishburne's back as Bill Foster, now playing as Giant Man. Atandwa Kani voices King T'Chaka, which is right because he did young King T'Chaka in the Black Panther movie. So also you get Wendy Lawson, not Annette Bening, Carrie Tombazian, and you get a young version of Hope Van Dyne, voiced by Madeline McGraw. So, and then Peter Quill is voiced by Mace Montgomery Miskell. So you got a couple names of new people, but overall the story is basically Peter comes back. Hey, Sean, good to see you. Peter comes back, wants to find a home, and of course, the people overreact thinking he's dangerous. only to discover it's actually his dad that's dangerous, and they must work together with Peter to stop, and you end up with an Avengers-like team. So this was a pretty... Hey, JD, good to see you. This was a pretty good episode. I liked the team they formed. I liked that Hank stuck to being Ant-Man and Bill Foster was Giant Man, and they didn't cross over. I liked that we get into Hank as a father thing. I love that they bring in Wendy Lawson, Lawson, because it's basically Captain Marvel, the first Captain Marvel, but she's going by Star Force. So I do like the fact that they've put together this Avengers-like team, and they go up against Ego, and then eventually there's another threat for them that they're going to probably stay together. So that was pretty well done. The third episode was one of my favorites because it's basically Die Hard with Happy Hogan and an injection of Hulk blood. It's Justin Hammer in the role of Hans Gruber, and you get a lot of voices back again. You know, John Favreau comes back as Happy, Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer, Mark Ruffalo, Jeremy Renner, Chris Hemsworth, Kat Dennings. They all come back and do their voices again. Now, you don't get Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, or Scarlett Johansson, but they're all in there. But my favorite is Ross Marquand, who has kind of taken over the voices of certain characters. He played Red Skull in Avengers Endgame. Instead of Hugo Weaving, he's voiced Red Skull in the What If series. He's voiced Ultron in the What If series. Here, he's voicing Werner, which is basically his take on Werner Herzog as an AI. That was one of the funniest things. But again, it's a Die Hard knock-up with Die Hard jokes in it. And it's also, it's a reference to a very obscure Marvel character called the Freak, which is something that Happy Hogan ends up becoming through a weird experiment. So it's all pretty interesting setup. The third one is actually the episode we didn't get last season, which is What If Iron Man Crashed into the Grandmaster? And you basically end up with this Mad Max meets Ben-Hur type thing, with Tony having to work with Valkyrie and Gamora and Korg. There's a lot of Korg in these. It's like they just keep bringing Korg back more and more. But we get Jeff Goldblum back as the Grandmaster. We get Rachel House back as Topaz. So you get a lot of that stuff. It's a fun episode, again, but it also explains where the Gamora came from that we end up with at the end of season 1, who helps fight the Killmonger / Avengers Ultron Prime. Then we get an episode that's probably the only sequel. It's a continuation to What If Peggy Carter was the first Avenger? This is the Winter Soldier version of that, called What If Captain Carter Fought the Hydra Stomper, with her being the Captain America role, Black Widow in the same role she's in, Nick Fury the same role he's in, but Steve Rogers in the Hydra Stomper as kind of the faux Winter Soldier at this point. Which makes sense because they would have lost Winter Soldier. And Bucky Barnes is now Secretary of State. So a lot of interesting things here. Rachel Weisz shows up in her role as Melina from Black Widow. So it's a kind of a sequel to both Captain America: The Winter Soldier and the Black Widow movie. Samuel L. Jackson, Haley Atwell, Frank Grillo shows up as Brock Rumlow again. So again, it's a very strange mix of who decides to come back and who doesn't. But it's also continuing, and it seems like, well, we're going to get that third Captain America sequel too, but with Captain Carter. The 6th episode is the one a lot of people are talking about. That is, what if Kaori reshaped the world? And this is basically introducing a new character of Kahori who taps into, she's a Mohawk warrior woman, and she taps into the power of the Tesseract, or the Space Stone, along with members of her tribe, and basically changes the world. But there's a cameo at the end of this one of Strange Supreme, voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch, which shows us, okay, we're leading towards another collective ending, you know, because we know the last episode is what if Strange Supreme intervened. So we're building towards that ending. Also, I think that this is going to be what leads into what if the Avengers assembled in 1602, which is the second to last one. So this is kind of the key one, and I think you definitely need to watch it if you haven't. And then this morning, we got the new one of What If Hela Found the 10 Rings. And this is interesting because it's kind of a sequel or a prequel to Thor, but it also ties into Shang-Chi. We get Wenwu, we get Tao Lun. So a lot of the elements from Shang-Chi, but we get them a little early. We get a very different Hela. Kate Blanchett, of course, comes back as Hela. We don't get the same actor as Wenwu or Odin, but Idris Elba comes back as Heimdall. So it's a pretty interesting episode. It shows Hela in a very different light. And I think she's going to be an important character in the end of this. So there's a lot of strange things. So if they do connect all these dots into one, it's going to be a pretty interesting ending. I thought he was director of S.H.I.E.L.D. You thought who was director of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Bucky? No, he was Secretary of State. All right, let's go ahead. We're going to take another break, and then we're going to come back and talk about bodies. Be right back.
Why was Princess Zelda sad after watching a bunch of YouTube videos? She couldn't find a link in the description. We'll stop if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's super easy. Click subscribe and click the bell when you do. And thanks for supporting the EXP.
Live from New York. What? Oh, sorry. Live from Cleveland? It's Friday night? It's Friday Night Live! With Nancy McCann. And Ricky. And sometimes Carlos. And featuring boxes and boxes of rare comics. Unique collectibles. Lots of smiles and conversations with new friends. Friday Night Live with Comics Unlimited. Friday night from 9 to 11 on The Experience.
Symphonic verses, Nocturne's romance. A song of romanticized darkness, dreaming death by sleep.
everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. All right, so let's talk about Bodies. Bodies is a show on Netflix that a couple weeks ago, I think it was, maybe a month or so back, Lisa and I watched the first 2 episodes. And I never wanted to watch it again. But she did. And the other night, she's like, let's watch another episode of that Bodies. I'm like, are you sure? She goes, yeah. And then I had to catch her up on it. Now, Bodies is an 8-episode miniseries. And it's based on a comic book from DC, Vertigo, of the same name, written by Cy Spencer, drawn by Phil Winsley, Tula Lette, Megan Hetrick, and Dean Ormstrom, with covers by Fiona Stevenson. Now, the reason it had multiple artists, and this came out in 2015, by the way, the reason it had multiple artists is that there are 4 different time periods. Did someone allow the bodies to strike the ground? Yes, they did. The bodies hit the floor, but the same body hit the floor 4 times. Basically what it is that a body had been discovered in an alleyway 4 times. Once in the 1890s, once in 1941, once in modern day, and once in like 2053. Same body, same wounds. And then we follow the detective assigned to it as they try to investigate it. And we discover there's a cult that exists through all of this time. And there's a lot of manipulations going on. Now, actor-wise, you're probably not going to recognize many of the people in it. I didn't. The only one I recognized is Kyle Soller. Kyle Soller plays Alfred Hillinghead, the detective inspector in the 1890s who's looking into it. And the reason I recognized him is only because of his eyes. Because in this, he's got a big full beard. And where I've seen him before, which is Cyril Karn, on Andor, he's clean shaven. But he's got this ability to stare in the creepiest way possible. And that's what this character does. He does a lot of anguished staring. Now, you're going to think I hated this series. And I will admit, I watched the series. Because I think they took an 8-issue comic book and turned it into an 8-episode television series by padding it with a lot of ridiculous drama. Not having read the comic, I'm assuming they did. Because it's very slow. And they rarely, if ever, give you an actual clue on what's going on. Instead, they spend the majority of time trying to convince you that this is weird. And it is. No drowning pool, sorry. Can't play that pun. So, by the end of episode 5, I was angry at this story. I was angry I had to watch it. I was angry that it existed. Because, like I said, I didn't find anybody in the show likable. I found it just kept getting more and more convoluted. More and more, oh, but this person in this time is actually this person in this time. And now they're doing bad things here, but they were a nice person here. Now they're doing evil things here. And that person is that person's dad. But if that person's that person, it just, you're creating time loops, and it just, but it was at a point that I was vested in the story, and I had to know how it ended. And Lisa looked up the ending and was ready to tell me so I wouldn't have to watch. And I'm like, oh, no. I want to know what this is ending now. Yes, Reacher definitely does make up for this. But see, that's the thing. This is not a bad show. When you get to the ending and you finally see all the pieces laid out, you can appreciate it for the grand tapestry, for what they did. They made it one of the most convoluted time travel stories ever. And some of the weirdest results. People who go back in time to become their own grandfathers. But how they kind of undo this thing is clever. And I don't necessarily think that it's bulletproof. I don't think the story is perfect. I think there's holes. But it's really unique. It's a lot of time to put in on a story. They could have done it in 6 episodes easily, gotten the same effect and cut out a lot of the excess drama. But overall, it's a clever piece of writing. So I did hate watch it. And I can totally understand if somebody watches it and bails out on it. But when it comes to its conclusion and you actually see just the incredibly simple thing that happens that undoes everything, it's kind of worth it. You end up feeling better about it. So I can't recommend Bodies unless you're a writer or you're somebody who really wants a clever twist and are willing to make a commitment. Or you're very British, because it's a very British show. But yeah, it might be worth going back to check out the comic instead. Because if they kept all of the twists and turns without all the drama in the comic, that might be the better choice. Triple B says the ending on a bad shows can make the show better or even worse. Yes. And in this case, they nailed a landing. So it is a horrible routine with a good landing. So, all right. Let's move on to the final topic. The one you guys have probably all been waiting for. Zack Snyder's love fest to himself, Rebel Moon, a child of fire. Now, I think everybody knows Rebel Moon was Zack Snyder's idea for a Star Wars show, Star Wars movie. And when they said no, he went, screw you guys, I'll do it myself. And that's what he did. The problem is, I don't think he actually changed the script. I don't think he went through and went, take out this, this, and this, that's because that's Star Wars. Take out this, this, and this. He already started by going, let's start with Seven Samurai. And then we'll add some Star Wars, and we'll add some Dune. Hey, Phil. And he created this thing that I'm not going to say it's bad, but I'm not going to say it's good, because it is derivative of everything that came before it. And it's slow. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes that it didn't need to be. And supposedly this is cut down from a 4 hours director's cut that he plans on releasing. And it's like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing a director's cut for a movie that hasn't just came out? I mean, it's just, why are you planning a director's cut in advance? Jay says, I'm waiting for the R-rated cut. No clue why they did two versions. JD says, translation, it's bad. They introduce an interesting character in the beginning. An android, or a droid, or whatever you want to call it, who is created to be the protector of a princess. And when that princess is killed, the androids then put down their weapons, and they just do physical labor, but they no longer fight because they don't have the person they're fighting for. This character is voiced by Anthony Hopkins. They call him Jimmy, though we never hear his actual name. He is in the movie for maybe 3 minutes collectively. And that's it. And by far, he's the most interesting character. Ray Fisher plays a character named Bloodaxe. Never recognized it as Ray Fisher. Had no idea. Ed Skrein plays a Nazi by way of Dune. And I don't know if he's supposed to have been a Nazi. His name is Atticus Noble. Every name, everything is so on the nose. There is basically a Jedi named Nemesis who uses flaming swords. There's a old retired drunken general named Titus. And of course, Korra is tied to the former king and queen and to the princess. And there's a mysterious girl that everything seems to start around, but we don't go. And it's obvious, and this is not a spoiler because they haven't said it, but it's obvious she's the missing princess, which is the only thing that makes any of this make sense. And it's just 2 hours and 15 minutes of completely derivative movie. Triple B says, I thought it was a lot. It sucks that we have to watch two movies to decide if it's good. I thought it was a lot of eye candy scenes. It was like it was a 2 hour trailer, not a movie. Yeah, that's a real good. There's a lot of slow-mo. Though I heard somebody say that the 4-hour scene, the 4-hour cut is just the entire movie in slow-mo. I heard someone say that the Ed screen has Hollywood's most punchable face. He does. Yeah, and it's not really that we're watching two movies to just the director's cut. You're skipping by watching the director's cut. This is only part one. There's still a whole other movie that's going to come out, not counting the director's cut. It was, you sit there, you could have a checklist. Okay, one of the characters is going to portray them in 3, 2, 1. Oh, look, there it is. Oh, to get this person, they're going to have to help out, and they're fighting the giant spider lady. Okay, and the cowardly guy needs to prove himself right there. Got it? Okay. I mean, it really does come across like that. The character, like I said, the names are all spot on the nose. Like we've heard them all before. JD says, haven't seen Rebel Move, but I'm hearing nothing but shade. Sad. I'm all in on Sofia Boutella as an action star. She did fine. And that's the thing, is that if you hadn't watched Star Wars and Dune and the Kira Kurosawa films or Magnificent Seven, you could probably sit down and enjoy this movie. But the problem is that most people have seen all that stuff. And there really isn't a lot of new in this, everything seems way telegraphed. Every moment seems like, oh, we've seen this somewhere before. And most of the time you can actually figure out where you've seen it before. It's not even that subtle. Movie by numbers, yeah. And I got to say this, I'm not anti-Zack Snyder. I liked the 300. I enjoyed Man of Steel. Batman v Superman had some good points to it. Justice League, I preferred his cut of Justice League to the J.J. Abrams one, or Judd Winnick, or whoever did the reshoot on it. That said, this is not a good movie. It's movie by numbers, paint by numbers. It's, here are all the elements we need to make this movie, and then just jam together. Joss Whedon, that's it. Thanks. And I sat down, I wanted to like it. Because I see a lot of critics panning of stuff, and I tend to watch those movies and decide if I like them myself or not. This one, I just couldn't. And again, I'm not sitting here going, I want my 2 hours back. It's just, there's nothing there. There's nothing unique. There's nothing special. It's Battle of the Planets, or Battle of the Stars, or whatever it was. When they started doing all the Star Wars knockoffs. Zach shits the bed from time to time. Sucker Punch was a 2-hour video game trailer with some awful, deep dance metaphor thrown in. Yeah. I feel like he could have gotten a really good writer to come in and fixed all this up and made it something interesting. All of these components. Janice says, Snyder does a good job with original ideas, but I can't think of anything I enjoyed that was based on established IP. Yeah, that's fair enough. And to me, this isn't an original IP because he borrows from all of them. You know? Again, Jimmy might have been the most interesting character. The idea of an android whose sole purpose is gone and now they need to find a new purpose, that could have been a compelling story if we would have focused on him, but we don't. He's in the movie, he's introduced, he does one action, and he's gone until the very end when he shows up wearing antlers for no reason. That's the extent of his role in the movie. And you get Anthony Hopkins to voice him. So those are my thoughts on Rebel Moon, as well as What If, Reacher, and Bodies. Again, Bodies I hate watched, ended up liking the ending for the overall narrative. What If has been great. Loving season 2 of Reacher. And Rebel Moon just felt like I've seen it 1,000 times before. So, and since that happens to me all the time, Jay says, you show up wearing antlers for no reason, Ed. He does, yeah, you know. You should check out his Facebook page. He just occasionally shows up wearing antlers. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up there, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hanging out this year. We will be back next week where I will look at some of the best things of 2023. You know, the best TV shows and movies. And if you guys have your opinions, reach out, let me know, and maybe we'll add them to the list. So, Happy New Year's, everybody. Hope you have a great celebration and that 2024 brings nothing but joy and happiness to you all. Good night, everybody.
Do you remember what it was like when you were a little kid and you got a letter in the mail? Now imagine that letter was filled with information about your favorite shows, pop culture questions, links to things you're going to want to see later, and even sneak peeks at upcoming programming here on The Experience. That's what the EXP mailing list is. Every week, we send you sneak peeks, information, and all of the relevant links for all of the shows you want to see. Sign up now on our website or scan the QR code that's on your screen right now.